Hey, what's going on everyone? Matthew from therighttrader.com back today with another cryptocurrency video. In today's video, I'll be reviewing the GoChain project. Just to give a brief overview of what GoChain is trying to be. Simply put, it's trying to be a better version of Ethereum, right? A smarter, better, faster, and stronger version of Ethereum while still being compatible with it. Basically, they have multiple ways to go about this. I'll get into more detail on the technicals later in this video in the white paper, but their token sale has already ended. However, we can look forward to their mainnet launch. I will also talk about that in more detail in just a second. I wanted to quickly mention that GoChain has gotten great ratings on ICO websites, and while their ICO is over, it's important to pay attention to this, as I just wanted to show that the project was well respected, right? It got a 4.3 out of 5 on ICO Bench out of 12 expert ratings, and just a lot of great ratings throughout ICO websites. Also wanted to mention that the GoChain token sale sold out in 1 minute, which is just amazing. So basically in roughly under a minute on May 2nd, the GoChain public sale sold out. And if that's not a testament to the fact that people believe in the project, I don't know what is. Very impressive nonetheless. And as they mentioned here, right, now that the token sale is over, their team is working on building the best possible product, and their mainnet is slated to go live at the end of this month with nodes around the world and supporting 1,300 transactions per second. So let's go back to the main website here and talk a little bit more about what it's all about. So basically, as I mentioned before, we can see that it is an Ethereum-based smart contract blockchain that is fast, secure, and green. It enables decentralized applications and smart contracts developers to lift and shift from Ethereum to GoChain for 100 times increased performance. A little bit more information on what GoChain is. It's, like I said, a better blockchain and a better cryptocurrency. Some of you might be wondering, why is this important, right? Why would we need another cryptocurrency? We already have Ethereum. This seems relatively similar. What's the point? Well, the fact of the matter is that some of the big, well-respected cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Bitcoin are facing some major issues with actually growing because they have some scalability limitations, and those are actually, quite bad. For example, Bitcoin can only support around 7 transactions per second. Ethereum can only process around 13 transactions per second. Now, just think about that number, right? That's not a lot for a global currency. Visa, for example, is able to process 56,000 transactions per second. And what that means is that some of those big cryptocurrencies are just not usable in the real world on a global scale, right? They're off by around 4 orders of magnitude, and that's something that GoChain mentions. And that is why GoChain is trying to really reach that level where it can be used in the real world and it's energy efficient, fast, things like that, right? Because there's no doubt that Bitcoin and Ethereum are limited at this point, and these newer generation cryptocurrencies are trying to solve that issue. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these newer generation cryptocurrencies like Nano get a lot of traction. And I think that GoChain will be next up here. First of all, it's a public cryptocurrency. You can build decentralized applications and rock-solid smart contracts on the blockchain. It's fully compatible with existing Ethereum wallets, smart contracts, and other tools. They have fast transactions and contract execution. And it is, of course, the next generation decentralized app platform that goes beyond Ethereum smart contracts. That's going to be coming in Q4 of 2018. Now, as they mentioned here, their goal is to provide a scalable, low-cost, energy-efficient platform for digital currency and decentralized applications. In fact, to go into a bit more detail about that, their goal is to be 10 times more decentralized. And I'll talk a little bit more about how they go about that decentralization in the white paper. Their goal is to also be 100 times faster. So as they say here, right, Ethereum can only process 13 transactions per second. GoChain will initially target 1,300 transactions per second, and they're actually going to try to get that up to 13,000 transactions per second down the line, which is actually more than Ripple. Their goal is to also be 1,000 times less energy consumption. because if you didn't know, Ethereum and Bitcoin consume a huge amount of power just to run their network. In fact, it's actually a pretty shocking number. For the Bitcoin network, that power used could actually support 3.5 million US households and 1 million US households to run the Ethereum network. So just let that sink in for a second, that's how much consumption it uses, right? It uses the equivalent of 3.5 million US households. That's just huge. And as they mentioned here, it's just unacceptable, it's not right, and it's unsustainable, right? On a global scale, this just can't work out in the long run. It's just too much energy consumption, especially, we're seeing a shift towards greener solutions, and it's going to be the same thing for cryptocurrencies, basically, in my opinion. So that's why GoChain will use a small fraction of the energy used to run other cryptocurrencies. There won't be any mining and things like that, and that's going to significantly help with that issue. Now, to talk a little bit about the timeline here, now that they've concluded their public sale, we're looking to what's next, which is the public network launch. So that's going to be at the end of May 2018, and they're going to have their mainnet live and open to the public with nodes around the world supporting 1,300 transactions per second. For Q4 2018, they're going to launch their next generation smart contracts, which will be easy, accessible, upgradable smart contracts. They talk about that in more detail in the white paper, but basically, smart contracts are currently not very user-friendly, and they have some security issues, so they're trying to fix all of that and basically create a better version, right? And like I said, they're really trying to be a better version of Ethereum here. We'll already see a lot of people shift towards Ethereum for its many advantages, but even Ethereum can be better, right? Because that 13 transactions per second is not pretty. For Q1 2019, they're going to have the Apache 2.0 license rewrite to increase enterprise adoption of GoChain. Very important. And Q2 2019, their target is 13,000 transactions per second, which is a 10 times increase in performance and volume over the initial launch. Now, to talk about their team, we have some very impressive members on here. So some of the founders have built and exited successful startups with funding from top-tier Silicon Valley VCs. The CEO, Jason Decker, is a serial entrepreneur, former hedge fund manager managing in excess of $250 million, angel investor, board member, and advisor with an exit to a public company. So great background, and you'll see throughout the team, right, people that are well-versed in programming, of course, and number of advisors as well. For example, Ben Godinzi, which is the marketing advisor at VanChain. We also have Chad Aramura, which is the VP Cloud at Oracle. So a lot of great advisors here on the team, and also a number of partners and investors. Amazix, Carnaby Capital, Hodl Partners, CryptoJack, Hades Capital. So numerous partners, as you can see. They have something called the GoChain Fund, which will be used to fund companies and projects that use GoChain to build upon. So sort of that venture capital arm to GoChain, and to kind of expand, the network even more, basically. They also talk a little bit about why they chose to run on the Ethereum blockchain, and they already go into some detail about this, but it's because of the many advantages that they have, right? The ability to run smart contracts, things like that, and they want to improve upon it, basically, right? And make it more secure, more energy efficient, etc., etc. Now, let's jump right into the white paper, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the technical aspects of how they plan on making a better cryptocurrency than what we have today, right? So first of all, the executive summary, basically, they plan to solve scalability, decentralization, and security. And like I said previously, right, 10 times more decentralized, 100% faster, and 1,000% better energy consumption. So those are definitely big goals, but definitely not unachievable. And that is because they plan on changing up the consensus algorithm from a proof of work to a proof of reputation. And this is a really big deal because proof of work algorithms consume a huge amount of energy, and that's kind of where the problems start happening, right? Is with that consensus algorithm. I'll talk about that in more detail, but they also have a proof of authority system also set up in place here. So they're really going to work on the reputation for running those blocks, basically. And they also have a staking aspect. So basically, in exchange for staking their identities, they are awarded and monetarily incentivized to process transactions. With the individuals' identities disclosed, this is meant to disincentivize them from being bad actors because it would damage their reputation. Basically, that's where they think that they'll be able to repair what's going on, right? By putting more trustworthy people as validators, basically. So we're going to go into a bit more detail about that, but basically, here we're really going to see companies as validators and not individuals, right? Because companies' reputations are much more important than just a single individual's reputation, and that's why it can be more trustworthy, hence run transactions more quickly. So first of all, they plan to use 50 companies in 50 different countries as the validators to force decentralizations. And the idea behind this is, also that security aspect to prevent 51% attacks, which are still possible on some of the current blockchains. Here we have a little bit of a mix of decentralization, right? We still have a centralized trustworthy aspect of things, but that decentralization with 50 companies in 50 different countries to prevent any kind of security issues or one group being too powerful, right? One company being too powerful. They will choose the initial validators. Basically, then that's going to go right onto the network. They're going to have venture-backed startups with burn rate, VC partners, angel investors. So by using these type of companies, they will basically have a much higher incentive to maintain network integrity and to protect their market cap and professional integrity, which makes complete sense, right? Now, talking a little bit more about how they plan on increasing that transactions per second number is what I said before, right? So in part, that's by moving to the proof of reputation consensus algorithm. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in just a second here, but you'll see how much that helps, right? Basically, they can drastically decrease the energy utilization needed to process blocks. In fact, the network is planned to be somewhere between 1,000 to 10,000 times greener in terms of energy utilization. Absolutely huge, right? Remember how many US households it takes to run the Bitcoin network or the Ethereum network? That is a huge, huge improvement, which actually makes it sustainable on a global long-term scale. Moving forward into the white paper here, we can see that their mainnet will launch at the end of May 2018, followed by smart contract upgrades and further network speed increases by the end of 2018. And in 2019, they plan to upgrade their network to access 13,000 transactions per second and 1,000 times the speed of Ethereum. So really drastic improvements there. Now, to talk a little bit about the speed and volume, public decentralized cryptocurrencies suffer from slow transactions and low transactions volume. I'm sure you've already noticed how slow the Bitcoin network can be, for example, taking hours sometimes to process a transaction. That's just not going to work in the long term, and it's already suffering a lot from that issue. So that's why they're trying to really improve that drastically. Like I mentioned previously, right? Visa, for example, averages 150 million transactions every day and can handle more than 56,000 transactions per second. So, Bitcoin with their 7 transactions per second or Ethereum with their 13 transactions per second are way behind, and it's just not going to work out on a global scale like that if they want to reach, what cryptocurrencies are really meant to be, right? Which is just an actual form of payment, kind of similar to what we have with Visa processing transactions, but really on that global decentralized scale. Now, to talk about that energy consumption, very important. So that proof of work algorithm that I talked about previously, which Bitcoin and Ethereum uses, that causes a huge amount of energy to be used. There's different reasons for that. Basically, it's because, every block has to be processed in a very slow manner. The system put in place by GoChain, right, their proof of reputation, proof of authority, fixes that issue drastically. They talk a little bit about that decentralization once again and mining, how much consumption that takes, and also the security issues with that. Also mentioning the issue with current smart contracts on the Ethereum network. So things like, once again, security issues. You can't easily change or modify them, and that's not like a real contract right there. In fact, Ethereum smart contract system is nowhere near what a real life contract looks like or how it can be used, right? And the goal is obviously to get to that level. There's of course the proof of stake algorithm, but that also has its limitations. And that's where we come into the newer consensus algorithms like proof of authority, and that sets trusted individuals to process the transactions. And that's how they can significantly increase the speed by skipping the proof of work hash computation. Basically, to get into a little bit more detail about that, we can see that the proof of reputation consensus model basically depends on the reputations of its participants to keep the network secure. And basically, once it's allocated those secure validators, it can directly process the transactions through them without needing to worry that they're not going to be secure or anything like that. And they don't have to go through basically extra checks, to put that in simple terms, right? And that's why the proof of authority comes into place to create those authoritative nodes that can sign and validate blocks. So Visa has something kind of similar, right, where it has trusted servers, so it can run directly through those servers, process the transactions with no hiccups. But with those older consensus algorithms, they have to, there's much more risk for security issues, so it takes longer to actually securely process those transactions. And once again, they talked about how why reputation is critical to a business, and how that will make it incentivized so that they don't act unethically, right, and that they increase that reputation, because they have several things that are at risk, right, like their market cap, the fact that they're publicly traded, their brand significance, and all those things are going to be ways to also measure the reputation of the company, right? So we have a real-time type of measuring there. And like I mentioned previously, authorized signers are trusted nodes that create blocks, sign them, and distribute them to other nodes. There won't be any mining here, and that's a big difference. A little bit more information about this is that incentives and rewards. So authorized signers will be rewarded GoChain coins per block signed, and initially this rate will be 5% of the total tokens, which is 50 million new tokens in year one, but this rate will decrease over time, and the amount per block will depend on the finalized block times. I'm not going to get into the detailed examples here, but there will also be small transaction fees that the author initiative node that signs a block containing the transactions will keep. Now, the consensus protocol ensures fairness and liveness by incentivizing the assigned signer of a block to perform the signing, but also allowing other blocks to sign if the assigned signer is unavailable. To talk a little bit about the voting aspect of things, GoChain has implemented a two-phase voting process for the initial rollout. The GoChain Foundation will add the first 50 signers to the authorization list, and these original 50 signers will be companies from multiple industries and spread out across multiple countries, like we mentioned previously. Now, for signer verifications, they're going to have a couple. So, company verification, DNS verification to confirm everything. Moving forward here, to talk a little bit about some of the speed and volume of the transactions. They can be verified quickly, and the volume of transactions the network can handle increases by orders of magnitude, and that's all by using those trusted nodes like we talked about previously. And that's similar to how Google or Visa uses trusted servers to run all the data, right? And when you think about it, it makes complete sense. So moving forward, we can see that as far as the energy consumption is concerned, using a trusted network of authoritative nodes means that there will be no mining, and no mining means that there's not a battle between computers to win blocks. There's much less security issues, and there's no wasted energy. So really numerous advantages, and that's why we're seeing a lot of cryptocurrencies actually remove the mining side of things, right? It just seems a little bit archaic. Now, to talk about the networking, signers will commute directly with each other, and this means that the node who just finished signing will send the just signed block to other signers in the authorized signers list before sending to a replication node, and that basically ensures the authorized signers get the information they need as fast as possible while offloading blockchain and API queries for the rest of the network to dedicated replica nodes. Not going to get into too much detail about the storage, but basically for the future here, we can see that their plan is to upgrade the smart contract system to make it easier and less error prone. And of course, everything else we talked about previously. GoChain will also add additional security features such as whitelist to protect access to contracts to minimize attack risk. And they also will continue to default contracts to be immutable by default for compatibility with Ethereum. Now, we already went over the roadmap at the beginning of this video. I'm going to talk a little bit about the allocation of funds. We can see 50% towards the token sale, and then we're split out kind of evenly, 10% towards the team lockup of 24 months vesting, 10% towards the GoChain fund, which is basically the venture capital arm to fund ecosystem projects within GoChain, of course. 10% going towards the reserve with a lockup of 12 months, and then some smaller numbers here also set out. The total token supply is 1 billion GoChain coins, and like we mentioned, right, 50 million new coins will be generated per year for authorized nodes, but this will decrease over time. That total token sale hard cap is 26,500 ETH, which of course is already sold out now. That brings us to pretty much the end of our review for GoChain. If you're interested to learn more about them, please check them out. I'll have a link at the beginning of the description of this video to take a look at their website. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.